Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome you all to this webinar within the activities of the Knowledge and Innovation Center in the program. And we are pleased and honored to have distinguished international speakers who are managing international programs of excellence. Mr. Robert Fangmeyer, Director of Baldrige Performance Excellence Program in the United States of America. Mr. Ravi Fernando, Director of Business Excellence Australia, and Dr. Hazza and Neaimi, Coordinator General of Dubai Government Excellence Program. The webinar will be moderated by Mr. Paul Grizzle, an expert and international consultant for many Global Excellence Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, Baldrige Performance Excellence Program is an official program of excellence under the auspices of the United States of America, and it is one of the oldest and most mature excellence program in the world, established in 1987 by the US Congress. The Australia Excellence Program is one of the internationally recognized programs. Both programs are founding member of the Global Excellence Council together with Dubai Government Excellence Program. The Council consists of 12 members representing international recognized bodies that manage or supervise excellence models and awards in a specific geographical area in the private and public sectors. The partnership of Dubai Government Excellence Program with these international programs of excellence in organizing this lecture reflects the prestigious position that the program has at the global level and its role as a global center for knowledge and innovation in government work. And now it gives me a great pleasure to wish you all a fruitful session and to hand over to our moderator, Mr. Paul Grizzle. Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world listening to this webinar. We're going to be talking about the role of excellence in sustaining agile and resilient organizational performance. What an important concept to be working on in these challenging times of COVID-19 and other global challenges. Again, my name is Paul Grizzle with Core Values Partners. Our mission is to focus, align, and accelerate performance excellence initiatives through effective use of performance excellence models. I'm a Baldrige Master Examiner and a certified advisor and certified trainer with the European Quality Award Program, the foreign evaluation expert with the China Quality Award, and a member of the ASQ Organizational Excellence Technical Committee. I'm also the co-author of a book called Insights to Performance Excellence, using the Baldrige framework and other integrated management systems. And again, I'm very honored to be a part of this webinar. I want to start by just talking a little bit about excellence and the need to move from compliance to excellence. In my role as a consultant, I see many organizations who are just focused on meeting compliance requirements, the requirements needed to stay open. And then they may have somebody whose title includes excellence, but they're not looked at as being too important. Compliance is what's important. In my work, I encourage organizations to move to become an organization that is focused on excellence up and down through the organization, from the CEO to the front line. In no way am I saying compliance isn't important. Compliance is very important, but it's just that first step, that threshold to keep moving towards excellence. And it's a journey. It's if you were to look at moving from compliance to excellence on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you be right now? Only focused on compliance? Or would you be a 5, making good progress? And the real key to this is that this is a key role of leadership. The best way to accomplish that journey from compliance to excellence is through the use of one of these management systems, these excellence models that give you the criteria that high-performing organizations demonstrate. My definition of these excellence models are that Baldrige, the Australian Excellence Framework, and the Dubai Government Excellence Program are outcome-focused, evidence-based management systems that represent the leading edge of validated leadership and performance practice. Keywords in there: outcome-focused, they drive results, and evidence-based. It isn't just Paul Grizel saying you should do this. It's these programs and the research that they've done over the years to demonstrate what is proven to drive high performance. So the question is, for your organization, are you satisfied with mediocrity, or do you aspire to excellence in the eyes of all of your customers? And that's your reason to use an excellence model. I am truly honored to introduce these people who are friends of mine and colleagues. First of all, Bob Fangmeyer. Bob joined the Baldrige program in 1997, and after serving in numerous roles over the years, was named Deputy Director in 2011 and Director in 2013. Bob has been focused on strengthening strategic partnerships, expanding the reach and impact of Baldrige, providing new and improved products and services, ensuring efficient and effective operations, and planning for strategic capability and capacity needs of the Baldrige program. Bob's background in owning and managing small businesses and his MBA from the University of Maryland have helped him transition the Baldrige program and lead it through extraordinary challenges after the loss of federal funding. And I will tell you personally that I believe Bob Fangmeyer is probably the person most responsible for the Baldrige program surviving through a challenging time. Our next speaker will be Ravi Fernando of Thrive Plus and a director of the Business Excellence Australia program. Ravi is a leading specialist assisting organizations to improve performance through the implementation and adoption of excellence models, improvement methodologies, and different quality improvement tools. He leverages his background in management systems, operating model alignment, and process improvement to deliver rapid and sustainable results to his clients while maintaining a focus on sustainable performance. He works with clients from diverse sectors ranging from aged care through government to resources. With organizations needing to pivot their business models, Ravi is passionate in his belief that a focus on excellence and innovation is of critical importance. He founded Thrive Plus to realize his passion. Ravi also works as a non-executive director of the Australian Organization for Quality and Business Excellence to increase awareness of excellence models and quality management systems among government and the business community. Although his current focus remains on Australia, Ravi also contributes to the promotion of excellence globally through his participation in the Global Excellence Council and the ASQ Organizational Excellence Technical Committee. Our third presenter is Dr. Hazza Almaini, who is currently working as the Coordinator General for Dubai Governmental Excellence Program in the Dubai Excellence Executive Council. He is managing vital initiatives across the government sector, such as Government Excellence Model, the Elite Model in Dubai, Dubai Smart Training Initiative, Dubai Forum for Government Best Practices, Dubai We Learn Initiative, and he managed the development of the Dubai Government Unified E-Suggestion System. Dr. Hazza also delivers training sessions and workshops related to the excellence and innovation in government and participates in many specialized local, regional, and international conferences. He also lectures in the area of management, excellence, and innovation in government. Dr. Hazza Almaini also holds the position of Vice Chairman in Dubai Quality Group, and he is a founding member of the Global Excellence Model Council. Dr. Hazza Almaini holds a doctorate degree measuring efficiency and productivity from Aston University in the United Kingdom and a master's degree in operational research and performance management from the same university. I apologize, Dr. Hazza, I forgot to advance your slide. Let me close by just talking about what we're all working towards. This is an American football coach who, I'm not that much of a football fan, but I am a fan of his quotation here. Vince Lombardi said, "Perfection is unattainable, but if we chase it, we can catch excellence." And that's what it's all about for those of us who are focused on excellence. Is we know we're never going to reach perfection, but there's nothing wrong with that goal, because we will continue to get better and better and become that excellent organization that we aspire to. Thank you.
Paul,
Yes.
can you please introduce your next speaker?
I'm sorry, our first speaker is Ravi Fernando, Director of Business Excellence Australia, Director of Australian Organization for Quality, and Managing Partner with Thrive Plus. Ravi, floor is yours.
Still can't hear you, Ravi.
Ravi, I think you're muted.
Please try to unmute again, just to check. Shall I suggest to switch to Bob? Then we can, while we are solving Ravi's sound problem. Paul, can you please introduce Bob to speak now to save time?
Paul, we can't hear you either, Paul.
I'd like to introduce Bob Fangmeyer, the Director of the Baldrige program out of Washington, D.C. And Bob, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paul. Good day, everyone. Just want to make sure you can see my screen and hear me okay.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Paul. And Zayed? No, okay. As Paul said, I'm Bob Fangmeyer, and I am the Director of the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program. Although you might not really be able to recognize me based on this photo, because it's been a little while and I've gone very gray. So forgive the confusion. I'd also like to thank Dr. Zayed and Dr. Hazza and everyone associated with DGEP for inviting us to join you for this session. It really is a pleasure and a privilege to be here. I'd like to start to share a little bit about the Baldrige program and the Baldrige Excellence Framework. Then I will discuss agility and resilience, the differences between those two concepts, what is necessary for an organization to achieve agility and resilience, and then finish with just a few examples of how use of the Baldrige framework has helped a variety of organizations be agile and resilient during this COVID-19 pandemic. Move on here. Sorry, my slides. As Fatima said, the Baldrige program was established in 1987 to improve the performance and the sustainability of businesses, mainly at the time in the US. Baldrige is a public-private partnership with a three-pronged mission. First, to establish and maintain a nationally recognized standard of quality and performance excellence, and that is the Baldrige Excellence Framework. Second, to recognize role model organizations that perform very well against that standard, and that's the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. And third, to foster excellence through the promotion of the Baldrige Excellence Framework and the adoption of best practices from those role model organizations, which really is pretty much everything else that we do, including training and conferences and blogging and executive development. The first part of our mission, establishing and maintaining the Baldrige Excellence Framework, is probably the most important thing we do because everything else is based on the concepts, principles, and best practices that are incorporated into the framework. Of course, if the framework is to remain relevant and useful for enhancing organizational performance and excellence, it cannot remain static and unchanging. It must continually evolve to incorporate the ever-changing drivers of organizational success and sustainability. To do this, we work very closely with industry and the extensive Baldrige community, including individuals like Paul, to review and update the framework every 2 years. Our goal with every update is to ensure that the core of the framework, the criteria for performance excellence, those key questions that drive critical thinking and improvement, we ensure, as Paul mentioned, that they remain at the leading edge of validated leadership and performance practices. That's leading edge, not bleeding edge, and validated, not theoretical or unproven. Some of those drivers of success that are embedded in and woven throughout the framework include having a keen focus on robust processes, ongoing evaluation and improvement of those key processes, understanding and addressing the needs and expectations of your customers and other stakeholders, of being a learning organization that enables discontinuous improvement through innovation, that builds respect, trust, empathy, commitment, and loyalty through valuing people, whether they are your workforce, your customers, your suppliers, or members of the communities that you impact. And of course, as we have all seen over the past 6 months, organizational resilience and agility are more critical today than ever before. And finally, ensuring that your strategy, operations, products, services, and relationships create value and achieve organizational results, excellent results. So I mentioned the importance of agility. Obviously, agility has been recognized as important for business success and sustainability for many years, especially as various external forces such as new technologies, big data, and the digital economy have truly transformed markets, customer expectations, and entire industries and business models. And agility is still a critical component of a successful business or other organization. However, as you read this definition from...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Ravi, we can hear you now. As you read this definition from businessdictionary.com, what do you notice about it? I noticed that the two key terms they use, react and respond, make it appear as though agility is seen as primarily reactive, the ability to respond quickly to a changing environment. While important, merely reacting to your changing environment, it might help you keep your organization or your business alive, but it certainly isn't going to enable sustainable high performance and a competitive edge over other agile organizations. And outperforming your peers and your competitors is really what excellence is all about. Sometimes thought of as the ability to recover or to bounce back to a previous state after a disruption. In our opinion, a more appropriate and robust definition of resilience includes being prepared for potential disruptions so that you can continue to operate and have the ability to not only bounce back to a prior state, but also have the ability to adjust to a new and a different state. In other words, to have the agility to adapt and succeed in that new environment. Therefore, to achieve resilience, leaders must cultivate the agility to respond quickly to both opportunities and threats, adapt strategies and offerings to changing circumstances, and have flexible work systems, including having flexible capability and capacity in order to adjust effectively. So let's take a deeper dive into what it takes to have a resilient and agile organization. So in his opening, Paul talked a little bit about the core principles that are the foundation of excellence models. And while they may not be identical from one model to the next, I believe you would have no trouble finding any one of the core concepts from one of the models somehow embedded within all the other models. And in the Baldrige Excellence Framework, we call them core values and concepts. And despite what I say on this slide, we currently do not have a core value called agility and resilience. We do have one called organizational learning and agility that emphasizes a much more robust and proactive definition of agility. However, the word resilience itself does not appear in that core value. Now, despite that, resilience is undoubtedly embedded within and throughout the framework and enabled through many of the other concepts that are explicitly called for. So I'm going to assume that we all agree that success in today's ever-changing, globally competitive environment demands agility and organizational resilience. I will also assume that we all want to have more agile and more resilient organizations. After all, it seems to me, and I assume to everyone else, that these disruptive events are occurring more and more frequently, triggered by economic upheaval or stresses, major weather or health events, social or societal demands, or innovative technologies or new product introductions that upset your markets. It used to be believed that some industries or sectors were more or less immune to the upheavals seen in other industries. But the reality is today, all organizations of all kinds are being impacted by these types of disruptions. Because of this, all organizations face ever shorter cycles for introducing new or improved products and services, and for responding rapidly to new or emerging issues. Resilience and agility in response to disruptions often require new or different work systems, different capabilities and capacity, reduced bureaucracy, the simplification of work processes and decision-making, agile, efficient supplier and partner networks, and of course, effective and efficient communication with your workforce, your partners, and other stakeholders. Now, I would also imagine that organizations in Dubai are not all that different from the organizations in the US. And I don't know of a single organization that has not had to suddenly do things that just last year or 6 months ago would have been considered impossible. A few examples. Everybody work from home, nobody come into the office for 6 months, impossible. Eliminate the cost and the lost time associated with business travel for meetings and events and only meet virtually? Impossible. Convert an entire education system from an in-person model to a virtual-only model? Impossible. I know all of you can probably think of many more examples, but the real question is, why does it take a global pandemic to break our learned paradigms, overcome perceived barriers, demonstrate agility, resilience, and innovation? Agility and resilience can also be achieved through your business ecosystem, in which collaborations, strategic partnerships, or alliances might offer complementary core competencies that allow for a rapid response to those disruptions, might allow for entry into new markets, or a rethinking of your customer offerings in sort of a larger context. Your ecosystem might also permit you to address common issues quickly by blending your organization's core competencies or leadership capabilities with those of other organizations and their complementary strengths and capabilities, creating a new source of strategic advantages. The result may be broad, interdependent Agile ecosystems that include your traditional partners and collaborators, as well as competitors, customers, entire communities, and organizations outside of your sector or outside of your industry. Our new normal following the COVID pandemic is going to require a new way of thinking, a new way of working, learning, meeting, sharing, and perhaps even living. And our priorities have changed, perhaps permanently. More than ever before, organizations must be agile and resilient, responsive to rapid changes, prepared to take intelligent risks and innovate, whether that innovation is around your products, your services, your processes, your operations, or entire business models. So finally, I would like to share just a few examples of how the use of the Baldrige Excellence Model has enabled a variety of organizations to be agile and resilient during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. The first is from a quasi-governmental nonprofit type of organization, and they're indicating that the Baldrige approach has created great focus for their leadership and their staff. Everyone knows what to do, they know how to do it and why, and because of Baldrige, they are agile and prepared to change. When the pandemic hit, they were able to rapidly innovate and transition to an entirely different mode of operating without any delay. The second is from a community college, and they are indicating that the Baldrige framework has helped keep them focused on continuous quality improvement for their entire journey towards excellence. And this pandemic has been their greatest test ever over the past 50 years. And frankly, that doesn't surprise me. Yet their faculty and their staff have demonstrated great agility. They've developed new processes, ways to track progress on those processes and measure their results. Howard Community College is now a stronger and more resilient organization because of their use of that excellence framework. From a mid-sized healthcare, sorry, did I miss one? Yeah, from a mid-sized healthcare system, they've indicated that utilizing the framework on a continual basis has created an agile workforce able to respond to rapid changes in the healthcare landscape thanks to systematic approaches to their communication, their leadership, and thanks to lean management. The last one is from a very large healthcare system, which indicates that the framework's focus on organizational learning is very powerful. It enables continuous improvements to key processes, and most importantly, at this time, their disaster preparedness. Their experience makes them believe that organizations that use the framework will not only survive, but thrive even during times such as these due to a deep culture of improvement and learning. And so in closing, I hope it's clear that agility and resilience are critical in today's world. I also hope that the message from that last organization is clear, that use of an excellence model can enhance and improve your agility and resilience. Now is not the time to stop doing those things that will make yours a better organization. Now is the time to ensure that your organization is not only prepared to survive and thrive in this new environment, but will be prepared for the next disruption that is on the way, whether it's a new competitor with innovative offerings, a transformative new technology that's going to disrupt your industry, whether it's dramatically different customer and stakeholder expectations, an environmental disaster, or the next pandemic. Whatever it is coming, and I strongly encourage you to continue your efforts to leverage an excellence model to ensure your success both now and in the future. Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you very much for that. Let's go back to Ravi, our panelist from Australia. Ravi?
Can you hear me?
We can.
That's good. That's good. And actually, that was just a test of agility and resilience, wasn't it, Bob? We planned that in advance. Now, can you see my screen as well?
Yes, we can, Ravi.
Beautiful. Excellent. All right. So thank you again. Thank you, Paul, for that introduction. Bob, fantastic presentation. Dr. Hazza, Dr. Zayad, and team, thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm going to focus a little bit about the Australian experience around business excellence, and particularly the experience we have been through in recent times. So Bob defined resilience very well, so I'm not going to go into a greater level of detail, but what we are looking for is organizations and individuals who can actually respond promptly to changing circumstances. And agility is the speed with which they can actually do that, essentially. So, sorry. So the Australian experience, I think, with the current environment, and I think one of the reasons we are talking about resilience is we've all had to be resilient. So the Australian experience has obviously been dramatic, like every part of the world, but we have also started to emerge from it reasonably well. As of yesterday, in the last 24 hours, we had 35 new cases. The total number is a little over 26,000, and we've had 824 deaths. So a huge amount of tragedy, personal impact, and individuals and organizations have really had to be very resilient at the start of the pandemic. Our unemployment rate jumped. Yeah.
For you all of a sudden got very fuzzy.
Got fuzzy in audio?
You're fine now.
Okay, all right, no problem. So the June unemployment rate for us was 7.45. I'm pleased to say the unemployment rate that just came out indicated that it had dropped to 6.8%, just out today. So we are hoping, of course, that Australia is starting to emerge out of the pandemic, that our resilience is being rewarded. So now we need to turn to agility. So during the pandemic, it has, of course, had a huge impact on the community as well. So this is some of the latest research that talks about the impact. Family, physical health, mental health became greater priorities for individuals. And it also changed the impact on behavior. So Bob posed a very good question. Why did, in a way, we have to wait for the pandemic for organizations to adjust, for us to start working virtually, and for us to embrace some of these technologies? And I think today's session that we are running through is a very good example of the agility that organizations have demonstrated, the willingness we have shown to be agile. And DGEP as an organization has pivoted undoubtedly to running these sessions on an online format. So keeping that agility alive has been really, really important. And what I believe, like what Bob said, is that excellence models have played a role in helping us to be agile like that. So business excellence has been around for a while. In Australia, as a national program, it actually dates back to 1987. And in fact, the Australian national program was launched within a month of the US national program. I think we still dispute with each other who started first between the two of us, but definitely it was very close together, evolved separately, but were two of the very early programs there. Of course, concepts about excellence have been around for some time. And in fact, before we got onto these concepts, Japan was one of the pioneers in having the Edward Deming Prize and being able to lead some of the excellence efforts at a national basis. Now we believe, or in our accounts, there are over 100 national excellence programs, the Dubai program being one of them. And in 2000, the Global Excellence Council was also formed to promote collaboration between all these different programs. And this is a reflection of the Excellence Council as it stands. So there are 12 members, as it was mentioned before, and these programs have a common motivation to work together, collaborate like we are doing today, and promote business excellence as a way for organizations and countries to be innovative, productive, competitive, and resilient. So the words that we use, I don't think they matter too much. Right now, we are talking very much about resilience because it's at the forefront of everyone's mind. And that is very important for us to actually bear in mind that resilience is one of the key things. And the way for us to be resilient is through our ability to be agile. So Bob spoke about a number of examples of how organizations in the US have used excellence models to develop that resilient and agile mindset. So here are some thoughts. Why would you use excellence models rather than something else? Excellence models are the best assurance an organization can have about productivity and its ability to compete, to sustain performance over the long term, and this in turn drives the resilience of those organizations. So organizations that use excellence models are generally considered to be the most resilient out there. There are a few other reasons as well. It promotes a change-seeking mindset and an agile business model. It helps organizations to balance short and long-term success. It focuses on efficiency and cost savings. And the final element there, which is critical, which Paul also referred to, is the ability to actually deliver on customer outcomes. Now, we also use, as one of the metaphors for the framework, we compare it to an umbrella. And the reason we compare it to an umbrella is one of the functions an excellence model has is to protect us from a rainy day. And right now, the world is going through a storm, definitely not rain, it is a storm. And organizations that have actually embraced excellence models, organizations that have had excellence thinking, have been able to weather the storm a lot better. The umbrella is also an analogy because it allows organizations to bring together multiple concepts and use them in a unified way to actually protect themselves and drive their journey, drive their excellence journey forward. And that has been tested very sorely at the moment. And that is one of the key things that organizations are focusing on. And that's where we passionately believe that excellence models need to play a role. This is a snapshot of the Australian model. I'm not going to go through in very great level of detail here, but a lot of these concepts will be very familiar to many of you. And I understand that most people in the audience today are experts in business excellence. So some of these concepts like the importance of leadership, importance of understanding your customers and stakeholders would be very familiar to you. The Australian model also has an inherent learning cycle called ADRI, which stands for Approach, Deployment, Results, and Improvement. ADRI for us is the primary driver of an agile, continuous improving culture. And again, that's at the heart of making sure that organizations are resilient. Resilient in times of crisis, resilience in terms of performance over the long term. So against all the considerations that the framework talks about, we always think, how can an organization do better and better? Learn from what it has been doing and improve itself. And that's learning is the key to being agile. Ongoing learning that an excellence model actually promotes as a culture is the critical part of agility, and that's why resilience and agility are very much enabled by business excellence models. Excellence models also allows you to test your agility, and Paul in his introduction spoke a lot about compliance versus excellence. So another way to look at it is it's a journey. Excellence, as Paul said in his final quote, you probably cannot get to perfection. But what organizations and individuals must do is to strive for perfection and hence go up a pathway that actually move towards excellence. It's that achievement of outcomes, not just for yourself, but all the stakeholders who have an interest in what you do. So compliance is part of that journey. Efficiency is part of that journey. And you can see that right at the top, agile organizations are the closest to what we refer to as excellent organizations. So in the Australian model, our scoring goes from 0 to 1,000, like for most business excellence models. And when you're at that agile state, which is about 650, that's when we believe you have genuine resilience. And the sole purpose of an excellence model is to guide an organization to actually attain that level of agility and hence be resilient in what they do. The Australian model also contains 9 principles of business excellence. They are essentially for us, they are our core values. And when I think of resilience at the moment, when we look around and look at the examples we've seen in Australia of resilience, we see these principles having been put into practice, not just at an organizational level, but also at a country level. And these principles are good principles for leadership, and they are very much at the heart of every excellence model, whether they are explicit or not. So I'll give you some examples as a conclusion of where we've seen these principles put into practice. So direction is one of the principles, clarity of direction, and clarity of direction actually driving an organization towards a specific point. So Australia, as you saw, has done reasonably well in managing the pandemic at the moment. And I believe that one of the reasons for that has been a clarity of direction that has come from our government. So our government made a very clear goal right from the start, and it was suppression, not elimination, it was suppression. And that's something the government has always driven towards. Very consistently, all the policies, practices has been done to do that. The federal government also formed a national cabinet to bring the different states and federal government together in achieving and moving towards this direction. So that's been a very important feature of Australia managing the pandemic. The systems and processes, an organization's ability to adjust its systems and processes and focus on its systems and processes is our third principle. And again, if we look at the Australian government, this has been a very big feature through contact tracing, testing, to make sure that the pandemic is brought under control. It has also put in place a range of processes that will actually help organizations to actually adjust and be resilient. That has been an important feature as well. And certainly, it's not just at a government level. This has been a big feature of organizations as well. It could be simple things from alcohol manufacturers pivoting very quickly to become hand sanitizer manufacturers, or manufacturing companies who suddenly saw their markets overseas vanish, actually pivoting to making ventilators. All things that were in short supply at the start of the pandemic for us. Keeping people engaged has been another big feature. And again, this principle in business excellence models talk about how people, when they're engaged, actually make a huge contribution to the agility and resilience of organizations. So this again has been a big feature there. So there are many, many other examples of organizations and government actually using excellence to actually drive success. And we are certainly not out of it. Right now, we are breathing a sigh of relief that Australia has been resilient. Now we are trying to be agile. Our organizations are trying to be agile, and we've still got a distance to go. So we don't really know where we will get to. But we do hope that by using some of these excellence principles, by using excellence models to guide that thinking, that our resilience will have been there and we will be agile to emerge from it. Thank you very much. Paul, over to you.
Ravi, thank you very much for that presentation. Our next presenter is Dr. Hazza Al-Neaimi, who is the Coordinator General for Dubai Governmental Excellence Program. Dr. Hazza. Whenever we have the presentation up, there we go. Thank you, Dr. Hazza.
Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I would like to welcome again our speakers. It's an honor and it's a great pleasure to have you with us in this webinar. It's a very interesting presentation. I'm very excited. I'm happy to be in such webinar with an excellent speaker and great leaders of Excellence Award around the world. We would like also to welcome our audience from all over the world. Actually, we would love actually to have to have you with us in person, but given the current situation, we are doing this virtually, which might be the new normal actually for such session in the future. We have been agile enough to be able to conduct this seminar virtually. And we highly appreciate as well the participation of two of our speakers who are joining us from the US, Mr. Paul and Mr. Robert. I believe it's around 1 o'clock in the morning there. And of course, Mr. Ravi joining us from Australia. We have participants joining us from all over the world, and I would like to welcome them to this webinar. And before we really diving into organizational agility, I would like to give them a brief about the role of Dubai Government Excellence Program and its contribution to the government entities in Dubai. Dubai Government Excellence Program is a pioneer program established by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, UAE Vice President, Prime Minister, and the ruler of Dubai in 1997. It's 23 years ago, and actually we celebrate the anniversary of completing 23 years last week. The main aim of this program is actually to enhance Dubai government excellence performance and services to become a leading level globally. And we are considering, DGEP is considered as one of the first program, first government program around the world, not like a Baldrige and the Australian program. It's around 10 years older. DGEP mandate focus on three main areas, as you can see, starting from setting the standard and incentivize excellence in government, and this is done through a regular review and update of the model and the criteria and the categories, and providing feedback to the government entities. And second role is actually to act as a global and knowledge innovation hub, and this is through facilitating knowledge sharing activities to Dubai government entities and to the regional and local and to our international partner, like we are conducting this seminar now, and actually to build an international network of experts around the world who will really and truly join DGEP in their assessment and their different activity. And accordingly, we advise Dubai leadership on government excellence in specific and government performance in general. We provide a regular sectoral feedback and reports to our leadership in Dubai. DGEP, actually, it's a program which is very close to His Highness' heart. He has quoted DGEP impact and role to improve government performance and services to a leading position in different quotes in his book, My Vision book. The government excellence model, the DGEP government excellence model, you know, it supports organizational agility in general, and the model itself, if you look at the model, its component, its structure, its categories, its criteria, it's really supporting agility within the government entities, and we will see that in further detail in the coming slide. Also, the recent update DGEP made last year on October 2019, we launched DGEP 2.0, and all the other initiatives around it has a significant role in enhancing organizational agility within Dubai government and Dubai as well. So if we talk about DGEP in general, it's really an integrated program. It incorporates all types of performance excellence, such as organizational excellence, employees excellence, initiatives, and other types. The award program, it's also integrated. So everything within the award, as you see from this model, everything is integrated. And we'll show in a minute how the criteria, the categories, the training activities, all they are integrated to really support the government to achieve leadership around the world. If we look at the model itself, we can see from the main criteria of the model. So for example, if we look at the digital transformation as one of the main criteria we have in the model, everything surrounding the digital transformation. If we talk about strategy, services, internal operation, data analysis, all of these things that is related to digital transformation, when we have seen this investment within the government, we have seen this really impacted during the COVID-19 and how the government were ready. Most of the government employees in Dubai were able to work remotely during the lockdown. All the government entities, almost 100% of Dubai government services, we've been able to deliver digitally on the remote working during the lockdown. Dubai ranked second globally, just behind San Francisco on remote working based on the CEO magazine. You know, in future shaping, before this pandemic, nobody were able to predict this pandemic and COVID-19, although there were early warning nearly a decade ago. However, if you look at our model, the future shaping criteria and future foresight, it's really an integral part of the model. This criteria and this model is asking the government entity to use qualitative and quantitative method to predict the nature and the importance of future trend, identify and select the best alternative option based on these future trends, develop a proactive strategy and innovation solution and initiative to deal with these trends. And one of the most important criteria, as you can see, and which we are facing right now, is the risk management. And the risk management is required the entity to work on identifying all kind of potential risk, crisis, disaster, and how the resulting impact from these crises, and also preparing risk management plan and everything surrounding this risk management plan, from activities, responsibilities, the time frame. And the government entities in Dubai actually work as well on identifying different scenarios and alternatives plan to cope with any changes that might happen in the future. And one of the main pillars within our model is its innovation and innovation management, which really and truly has a significant impact on the government entity to be agile, to create new solutions, to provide new ideas. So DGEP in general is enhancing and focusing on agility through different dimensions. We just saw the government excellence model that it's promoting agility in general, and the elite model, which we'll really talk about it in more detail in the coming slide. The model criteria that we went through just now, the risk management, the innovation management, the future foresight. DGB also conducts several knowledge sharing and capacity building throughout the government. Throughout the years, we focus a lot around providing training and knowledge sharing about the agility, and we have online training as well in Dubai Smart Training, and we have modules which really talk about organizational agility. The assessment itself, our assessment is conducted by SMEs, and which really make the government entities agile enough to look for the best practices, to start implementing the best practices and to adapt them. Finally, even our awards categories, our award categories is designed somehow to really support organizational agility. If we look, we have one of our categories, for example, it's the best entities in innovation and the best entities in financial efficiency. So you have to be innovative, and at the same time, you have to focus on the financial aspect at the same time. So entity has to be really agile and becoming more innovative, and at the same time being, considering the financial aspect at the same time. DGB 2.0, in order to keep our business model relevant in today's world and to address all the challenges really face the government entities. Recently, as I just mentioned, DGEP has gone through a significant review and update, which we refer to as DGEP 2.0. The outcome of this exercise was to, coming up with 7 principles that form the foundation of DGEP 2.0, which is considered as really, this 7 principles considered as an agile and a dynamic model and a point of reference for the government entities to move towards agility. As we can see, all these, it's really newly defined principles to create this dynamic and agile way of working within the government, starting from the league competition, and we'll talk about it in a minute. The league competition within the assessment itself, the elite model, it's a new assessment pillar. It's ahead of the curve, assessing the advanced entities. Result-based assessment, where we focus 100% on assessing the results for specific entities who are in the excellence level and on the elite model. Leaderboard, which refer to a dashboard provided to the government entities and to the leadership, where they can see all the scores comparing to their previous year's scores and comparing to other entities' score. Feedback, we, through our SMEs, we are providing a different type of feedback report, a sectoral feedback, overall government feedback, entity-based feedback. And another principle we have or project is a pioneering partnership, which will really support government entities in working together as a one government. And something we call is a treasure hunt, which we refer to a limited number. We try to limit the number of awards to really elevate the value of the awards. If we talk about the league competition, which is which is a 3-league competition to motivate government entities, is similar to the football league competition. If we look, if we start from the foundation level, for the entities who score 400 and below, and we have 15 entities in this level to qualify, their target is to qualify to the next level or to the excellence level and to be certified excellence. On the next level, we have the excellence level for the entities who score between 450 and 600, and we have around 13 entities in this level, competing on 7 different awards categories. So where government entities can compete on this award and to become as a certified excellence organization. These entity has the chance as well to be qualified if they scored above 600 into the elite model. And the highest one is the elite level for the entities who score above 600 and the 600 points in the previous assessment of the award. If we look at the elite competition, the elite competition was developed as a result of a challenge we saw within the government entities. Some government entities dominating most of the awards categories, and others were left out with no chance really to compete or to win anything. And basically, this practice were demotivating these government entities. In this way, every entity is motivated and has its own target, and it's awarded according to their current level of performance. After 20 years of assessment or 23 years of assessment, entities become very much aware of the excellence model and the criteria and all the requirement. And so for this model, the elite model, will really add the element of unpredictability. As you can see, the elite model was developed to assess the government entities who score above 600, and the requirement of this model are dynamic and will be changed in every assessment cycle based on the latest trend, the government priorities, the leadership direction. So we're always gonna be changing this. So for this coming assessment cycle, which will be held on next January 2021, the model will focus on 3 main pillars: agility, which is our topic today, data science and AI, partnership or PPP, public-private partnership. And this model was really announced last year prior to the pandemic. And if we look at these components within this model, it does, if it was really preparing the government entities for this crisis. It was really surprised. If we talk about agility, if we talk about data science and AI and a partnership, all these pillars and concepts really preparing the government entities for such crisis. There have been many success stories within the UAE or within Dubai in addressing the COVID-19 situation. I will highlight a few examples of success stories in the coming slides. As you all aware, on the 11th of March this year, the World Health Organization announced or declared that the COVID-19 is the worldwide pandemic. The Dubai 19 Command and Control Center were established immediately by His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed Al Maktoum, Crown Prince, and the Chairman of the Executive Council. This center really creates an integrated network which consists of various public and private entities to manage the COVID-19 situation in Dubai and to really overcome the global pandemic around the clock. This initiative is a clear example of the government agility. If we talk about the government as a whole, this is a clear example of how the government been able to immediately establish the command and control center within a few weeks from announcing the pandemic. It's really and truly reflecting the agility of organization as a whole. I've selected a few examples from the government level. If we look at, for example, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, it ensured the 24/7 uninterrupted customer service provision of water and electricity throughout the COVID-19 crisis. And this would never happen without achieving, DEWA embedded agility, readiness and positivity and productivity behavior in working remotely, as well as the availability of technology and the right policy in place. DEWA also, was agile through extending its support to other government entities during the pandemic, to Dubai Police, to Dubai Healthcare, and to Dubai Municipality. Dubai Police has focused in reskilling its workforce and to support overcoming this pandemic. As you can see, over 14,000 employees has been reskilled to really face this pandemic. More than 58 work procedure, have been created. The new 58 working procedure. They've been able to stop 38 old procedures, moving 100% of smart surfaces. It shows you how ready and prepared they were. The last example we have here, the Road and Transport Authority, they have repurposed its taxi during the pandemic since a large number of taxi were idle due to the drop of demand. As you can see, the drop was 87% of taxi were not utilized. More than 10,000 of a taxi driver were not utilized as well. The taxi were being used to transfer COVID-19 patients due to the pressure on existing medical vehicles, and have been also used to transfer, grocery, where online shopping increased significantly during the pandemic, and with a really limited option of delivery. And this shows you as well how RTA, or Road and Transport Authority, have been really prepared in addressing the current challenge, and to really, seizing opportunity to support other sector within the city. Finally, I would like to share with you, one of DGP initiative that took place during the COVID-19 pandemic, which also shows how DGP being agile and utilizing existing initiatives for other purposes to overcome the pandemic. As you can see, DGP has conducted an exciting, and I believe it's a very beneficial project during the crisis, which has held under one of our benchmarking initiatives, which we call Dubai We Learn initiatives. During this crisis, we have initiated this project aiming at learning from the world best practice in managing and recovering from COVID-19 crisis using internationally recognized tools, which is trade tools. We have it within our Dubai We Learn project. The project was conducted and finalized in duration of 6 weeks, and it was 6 weeks, and it was during the crisis and the lockdown. Everyone in Dubai were working remotely. This project involved in identifying the best practices in managing COVID-19 in 5 different pillars. We focus on managing crisis, public health, economic recovery, food security and supply chain, and finally social behavior pillars. And we have the pleasure of working with 28 government officials. We're involved in 5 different teams representing 11 government entities. The project resulted in identifying more than 200 best practices from 50 countries around the world. During the pandemic as well, DGP were able to be agile and continue its business through providing an online training and webinar like the one we do. We conduct many of them during the pandemic. We conduct an online interview as well with our, before we postponed our assessment cycle, we conduct an online interview with the Emirati assessor and with the international SMEs. And actually, this is the first time, even before the pandemic, we were able to provide training using webinar to our international SMEs, even before the pandemic. And finally, we were able to review and finalize and really get a certification on our innovation framework from an international body in the US. With this slide, we come to the end of our presentation. I'm happy answering any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hazza. We have a lot of questions that have come in on the question and chat features. We're going to try to get to as many as possible. I'd like to start with one that I think is going to be common for all of you. How do you see the role of organizational culture in managing resilience and agility? Who'd like to go?
I will let our speakers from the US and Australia to answer this question. We need to learn from their experience.
Paul, this is Bob. I'll start. So I would say that culture is a critical component for anything you are trying to accomplish. If your culture does not support and enable, in this case, agility and resilience, you will not be successful in that. And how do you get a culture that supports agility and resilience? Well, it starts with leadership. Your leadership is going to either create the culture that your organization is striving for through their behaviors, through what they reinforce, through their communication, through the systems and processes and things that are put in place that will support that culture, or they're going to allow your organization to have sort of a culture of what I'll call the lowest common denominator. Whatever sort of bubbles up and evolves from the individuals who are in that environment. And that is never going to be the ideal culture for your organization. So it is absolutely critical for leadership to intentionally design the systems, the processes, the communications, the values, the work that's needed to actually reinforce and create the culture that your organization is striving to achieve.
Thanks, Bob. It's interesting how so many things come back to effective leadership. Ravi, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, look, I think, can you hear me first of all?
Yes.
Okay. I think the only thing I'll add, Bob covered the importance of culture extremely well. There are two things I'll add. One thing we need increase.
Ravi, you all of a sudden got very fuzzy again. Could you start again?
Yeah. So I'm not going to repeat. I agree with everything Bob said. Two things I'll add is, one of the things we have been talking about a lot is that individuals and people within an organization need to have a change-seeking culture. So it's not enough anymore to be ready to change or ready to be agile. I think what we've been saying is we need people to always be looking for opportunities for change. And I think this environment has kind of really shown the importance of that, because we've had to change. We haven't had a choice. So organizations that have created that culture over time have been able to cope with the situation a lot better.
Thank you, Ravi. Dr. Hazza, anything you'd like to add to what we've heard?
I totally agree with what Bob and Ravi mentioned during the, about the culture. But I would add that, it's of course the leadership has a main and critical role in setting the mindset and the culture. However, the leadership also needs to really act as a role model when it comes to, changing the culture and the mindset of the organization. Again, we need to invest in different, in the capabilities of the organization and the human resource. We need to invest in the systems that will enable us to become more agile. So we cannot just depend on a leadership and at the same time all other aspects within the organization are really suffering. So I think it's different components that really put them together, which will really make the organizational culture agile.
Very good, thank you. We have another question that I think is related to culture, and I'd like all of you to take a step at addressing this. How safe is it to express new and different ideas, to be different and to take risks? And I think what the question is getting to is, how do you establish that culture where new and different ideas are accepted, and the idea of being different and taking risks can be rewarded as opposed to being pushed to the side? Any thoughts on that?
I can take a stab at this first, if you can slide. Excellence, one of the things that, Paul, I'll take it back to one of the first comments you made, a difference between compliance and excellence. So compliance focuses on meeting rules. It's a simple way of putting it. Excellence sometimes talks about breaking rules. Now, this is a little controversial, but it is about taking risks, and it's accepting that you can fail. So you obviously have to do it in a controlled way. You can't just take absolute risks that are going to jeopardize lives or, some key values you hold, but you need to be able to take risks, accept failure, and that's at the heart of, I think, agility. It's definitely at the heart of innovation, and that's ultimately what's going to help us move forward.
I would completely agree with that, Ravi, and only add that the way we like to talk about it in Baldrige is creating a culture and the environment that is focused on taking intelligent risks. So making sure you're using data and information to understand, as you said, that this risk will be appropriate and not put perhaps your entire operations at risk, but something that is likely to result in benefit. And the only other thing is a sort of a reinforcement, again, by leadership and your systems, to not only permit failure, but to encourage people to fail fast, right? To move quickly, to test things, to try them out, and to quickly be able to make a decision as to whether or not it is a good change or not, and stop those things that are not going to result in the sorts of things that you're trying to achieve.
Thanks, Bob. Dr. Hazza? I will move on, and Ravi, I would go back to the previous question when you mentioned a change-seeking culture. And if you're going to be an innovative organization and you actually go out and seek change as opposed to letting circumstances control you, I think that leadership being able to be comfortable in having employees express new and different ideas is really a part of that change-seeking culture. Okay, there was a question submitted to Bob. Is there any similarity in all the success stories that you mentioned in terms of their level of maturity in their excellence or Baldrige journey?
That's a great question. And there is a commonality in that they all are and have been using the Baldrige framework for some time. These are organizations that have been using the framework to self-assess, to go through the state and local award programs to improve their performance and receive that feedback. Some of them, a number of them, have been National Baldrige Award recipients. So that is definitely the commonality, that they have this culture, this intention to become excellent, as Paul said, and we've been talking about, and they are using the framework to make that happen.
Thank you. And being involved with multiple of these Baldrige recipient organizations, it's been interesting to see that most of them, it's a journey of 8 years, 10 years, 15 years to be that Baldrige recipient. It isn't just a light switch that you say, okay, we were a compliance organization, now we're an excellence organization. We use the word, it's a journey, and I think that's true for all of these, is that leadership is committed to excellence and they're willing to do the things over time and frankly make some hard decisions along the way to become that type of organization.
Thanks, Paul. I would add one other little thing, and occasionally we do see an organization that is new to Baldrige that will come in and perform very, very well and perhaps even receive the award on their first try. But the reality is they have been striving for excellence for a long time. They have just been doing it with other tools and other methodologies, and it's they're new to Baldrige, but they're not new to excellence.
If I can add something there, Bob and Paul, I think that's a really, really important point. Excellence models are effectively good leadership practices, and that's all that is. They are a concise way to look at an organization, but they are very good leadership practices. So anyone who uses good leadership practices could come in, and certainly we've had that experience as well in Australia, where an organization that had never seen the framework come in and win an award the first time around. It's not something that's different, it's just good leadership practices, but put in a concise way, which makes it easier to apply and use, I think.
And I would say that that's why we talk about making sure that the criteria are validated leadership and performance practices. These things have been proven to be effective in helping organizations achieve higher performance.
I apologize, Pop. I think I have a technical issue. So what was the question again, please?
The question was, is there any similarity in all the success stories that Bob shared that in terms of level of maturity in their excellence or Baldrige journey? So what I would ask you, Dr. Hazza, is do you see similarities in those high performing organizations that are well along in their excellence journeys that that you would see as common among all of them?
Absolutely. As I just mentioned in the presentation, we've seen, the high performing entities achieve really, they become really aware and high, they perform high in different criteria. That's why we try to introduce new challenges for them, to introduce something new through the elite model. So I totally agree. It's the high performers, they have a similar achievement. Yeah.
Very good. I like to think of these excellence models as being providing a common language of performance excellence. So written down on paper is, here is what high performing organizations do, and whether it's Dubai, whether it's Baldrige, whether it's Australia, whether it's China, whether it's Africa, that common language of performance excellence that we see in the core values, the basic principles, is really what helps drive that journey. And it's what we see in common among those organizations. I have another question here. Whatever we call it, resilience or agility, it requires timely prioritization and planning. The concept of sense and response for excellence in government is easy to say, but hard to do. And I would agree completely with that. It's easy to say we're going to do it. It's hard to do it. The question is, how can government bodies be agile and resilient while they have itemized and tight annual budgets and hard transfer and reassignment rules?
Yeah,
can I first crack?
Yeah, of course, I definitely agree with this question and with their comments. It's not a magic. It's not a one button you can press and then everything will change to the moment at 1 second. For example, I will refer to Dubai, for example. We invested a lot, for example, in digital transformation for the last 20 years. In 2000, we established in Dubai, the e-government, and then 10 years later or 13 years later, we established smart government. So it's all about really investment, within the government, within the capabilities, within the organization. It's not going to happen, all of a sudden.
Thank you, Bob or Ravi.
I would add one little thing, and I can't speak to the Dubai government, but I can speak to the U.S. federal government, and we have very similar challenges, of course. The thing I would offer is every organization within the government, all the subdivisions within those organizations, and even the individuals within the organization all have a sphere of responsibility. I would suggest that you start within your own sphere of responsibility and make sure you are adopting and practicing these best behaviors and these principles that we're talking about within your sphere of responsibility. Demonstrate the benefit of that, and then work to spread it to ever larger parts of the organization.
I'm not sure I have too much to add. I think only thing I'll mention is that if you use your excellence model, if you understand your business model very well, those decisions become a lot easier. So I think, that some of the best examples we've seen are organizations that have a good understanding of their business model, and they could very quickly see where they could save money to actually reallocate resources. One of the first things a lot of government agencies in Australia did was cut funding or work where they could cut it without compromising key outcomes, and reallocating some of those funds. Could be $3 million, could be $100 million to support in the community. But they did that because they understood the business model very well.
Very good. Every time I see something like this where somebody says, well, but we're a government body, we're different, what I found is most organizations are more similar than they are different. And when we have itemized and tight annual budgets, there aren't too many organizations that don't have a tight annual budget. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for learning through benchmarking with other similar or even dissimilar organizations to find out how do we respond in an agile and resilient way. Frankly, sometimes you need to be more agile and resilient when you do have tight annual budgets and be able to plan for those potential changes that you have to address under those tight budgets.
I totally agree with you, Paul. For example, within our assessment model, we have one main factor which has 10% of the assessment talking about leading positions and learning from the best practices, and this is what really help the government entities to learn from the best practices around the world. And this is one of the main factors of the assessment, actually, and that's why we have subject matter expert coming in and assessing the core business of the organization within the Dubai government.
Very good. Thank you very much. I have one comment in here that I think is interesting, and it really gets to the diversity of the group that we have as presenters today. Are you aware of the African Excellence Forum with a good model of what they call their Ubuntu Excellence Framework? And how do you involve African continent to take part in these important webinar sessions to also exchange ideas and appreciate these kind of contributions? I take that more as a comment than a question, but it is interesting to see the many excellence models around the world that are driving improvement, that are driving excellence in every continent except Australia, is my guess. I'm going to go to a couple other questions here. We'll finish up in just a little while. Bob, you mentioned that the Baldrige Excellence Framework is updated every 2 years. What type of changes do you think will be necessary for yours and other excellence models in the wake of this global pandemic?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, in fact, we are nearing the end of that 2-year cycle, and we're going to be releasing a new version, the 2021-2022 version, in late December. And we've been gathering input from a variety of sources, of course, Baldrige practitioners, various experts from leading organizations, reviewing studies and articles by researchers and thought leaders, etc. But we've been doing that for about the past 18 months. So it's really an ongoing activity for us. And what's interesting to me is how rapidly the conversation shifted during this period from one of, it really doesn't seem like we need to make a lot of changes to the Baldrige framework, to all of a sudden, wow, we really need to make some changes and make it clear where and how the Baldrige framework helps organizations be agile, resilient, and sensitive to the larger changes that are occurring in society, particularly in the US, in my mind, where we're much more sensitive to these issues around equity and inclusion. That said, as I mentioned in my presentation, these concepts, including the ones I just mentioned, are already embedded within the Baldrige framework, but they're not necessarily explicitly called out. So that is actually one of the primary changes that you will see in the Baldrige framework for the next version. And I would encourage other models to do the same, to ensure that your readers and users can tell exactly where and how the framework or your model addresses those areas that are of importance to them, not just from a business perspective, but also from a social, a societal, and a global citizenship perspective.
Paul, can I add one thing, please?
Of course.
I've been receiving messages from DGB team to talk about, something we really launched recently, yesterday, which reflect how DGB been agile. Recently, actually yesterday, we have a meeting with the excellence coordinator within the government entities, and we introduce, which I didn't put in my presentation, but we introduced a new way of assessing 2020. To consider the COVID-19 pandemic and the new normal. So this is going to be assessed as a new separate assessment next year. And this being developed by the DGB team, and we presented to the government entity yesterday, and we plan, we hopefully going to get their feedback within a week time, and then we launch it officially. So this is something new we need to share with you. It's about assessing the business continuity, assessing all things related to COVID, and how the entity, government entities being able actually to recover and to support economy, all across 2020 years.
Very good, thank you. I do have an interesting question here, which the concept of measurement, we're always looking for, how do we measure our performance? Do you have any ideas on how you can measure the agility and resilience in an organization? Or is there a further outcome measure that would demonstrate that you are agile and resilient? I guess what I'm getting to is asking the question, how do you know if you're agile and resilient?
Can I go first, or I'll let our guest to speak, and then I'll continue? If we talk about DGP, for example, that agility is really, we're considering agility is the ability of the organization to to quickly respond to changes happening internally, inside the organization and the outside the organization. So either with this pandemic, with COVID, or with any other, changes that happening around the world. Now we live in the era of, fourth industrial revolution, and a lot of things been changing really fast. So when it comes to agility, we consider, how fast the organization been, responding to the changes that's happening within the organization and with outside the organization. We gonna measure there is different scenarios for and risk plan in place, and is the resources and the time frame and all the risk plan being identified. So all these things going to be considered when we talk about agility, how the all the system are set, all the responsibility are really distributed among the employees. So all of these things gonna be we're gonna be talking about when we're talking about agility.
I would add just a couple quick things. One is, as things are changing and you need to respond to them, there may be some extent of sort of downtime between the change. So perhaps you could measure how long are your various operations or your processes actually not functioning while you're doing your conversion. So maybe downtime is something you could look at while you're changing. The other is, how rapidly are you able to actually make that change and begin to address the new and different needs and expectations of your customers and stakeholders. So in this case with the pandemic, I mean, things were changing on a really like a daily basis. And within the Baldrige program, we had very little time to make changes to some of our really core activities once this became the true pandemic that it has become. And in fact, we were just a few weeks out from our annual training of our examiners when it was declared a global pandemic. And so we had very little time to convert everything over from a in-person training model that we have used for 30 years to a virtual model in order to accommodate the needs for our examiners, our program, and our applicants. And we were able to do so in a very short time. So I don't necessarily have comparisons for that, but obviously we were able to minimize the amount of time it took to make that change and still effectively provide those services or those products to our customers.
I might offer a slightly different perspective on it. I would actually argue that an excellence model can be tailored, if you like, to measure any outcome you want to achieve. So agility would be one of them, but a more common one that we find with private sector organizations is how can we be more profitable? They're not that fussed about much else. They want to be profitable. They want to generate a profit. So you use the different components in the excellence model just to look at profitability. How does leadership contribute to profitability? How do people contribute to profitability? How do you optimize your processes to contribute to profitability? So in a sense, agility becomes one objective, and you can use the framework to look at how you're going to achieve that objective almost at the exclusion of everything else. So a different way of looking into that, I think.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Zayed, is it about time for us to close? I apologize, we have a lot of questions that have not been answered, but I think many of them fit within the questions that have already been answered as far as culture and things like that.
Yes, you may close, Paul. Thank you.
Very good. So I want to thank our panelists very much for participating in this. These are truly leaders in the performance excellence world, and I'm honored to be able to be a part of this group. We did get some various notes about the handouts. We'll see if we can find what the problem was in that download process. So, Dr. Zayed, do you have any closing comments for us?
Fatma will have a final comment.
Fatma,
yeah, I just would like to thank you very much, our distinguished speakers and moderator. Till we meet again in another knowledge sharing session, please stay safe. Goodbye. شكرا لكم حضورنا الكريم. إلى اللقاء في لقاء معرفي آخر إن شاء الله.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you. Bye.
Time to sleep.